All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the ProjectWise Basic User Webinar. I'm Kyle Ince, and I'm here with Brandon Williams, and we're going to kind of go over ProjectWise. We have the audience muted for now, but at the end we're going to open it up for some questions. But feel free to type in the chat as we go, and maybe we can answer some of your questions during the session. So we'll go ahead and get started. So ProjectWise is a Bentley Systems Incorporated engineering document management system. So what this is going to provide to ODOT is it's going to be a single source for all of our project data across ODOT. So no matter what district you'll be in, it's going to be a single source warehouse for all of that data. So it's basically a direct replacement for the iDrive for project data and for standards. Those will be managed in a managed workspace. And this has some benefits to using ProjectWise. So we're going to improve our access to the most up-to-date files. We're going to virtually eliminate all lost or broken references within the system. And it's directly integrated into all the Microsoft and Bentley products. And then there's a few other things that we'll kind of get into as we go. So in order to use ProjectWise, we have to log into the connection client. So over the past few months, you've probably seen this pop up on your machine if you have any Bentley software installed. So moving forward, we're actually going to have to log into this. And it uses our Windows single sign-on to authenticate us to be able to get any licenses in Bentley's cloud services. So if we click inside the password field or hit sign in after we type in the email or hit enter, it's going to automatically log us in with that Windows single sign-on since we're federated with Bentley. And after doing so, then we're able to log into ProjectWise. So by default, there's not a desktop shortcut, but I like to use the Windows 10 search feature in the bottom left, so that little magnifying glass to be able to find ProjectWise in the search bar. And then you could also make your own desktop shortcut if you want, just by right-clicking on that, opening the file location, and right-clicking on that executable to create a shortcut on your desktop, just for easy opening. So I'm going to pass it off to Brandon. He's going to talk a little bit about the Explorer and the different data sources once you're inside ProjectWise.
Thank you, Kyle. So Kyle just went over how to log into the connection client and how to create a shortcut or open ProjectWise. So for the first time, you're going to see three data sources. You can see here on the right. We have an Ohio DOT archive, an Ohio DOT projects, and Ohio DOT training and testing. So the Ohio DOT archive is a read-only repository for our plan sets. Those who are familiar with the plan vault, that is where the PDF plan sets are going to lie. The Ohio DOT projects, as Kyle mentioned earlier, is going to be the replacement of the iDrive, where all active projects are going to be worked on, including connected projects as well. And the Ohio DOT training and testing is really just a sandbox area for the administrators to test workflows, but also train our users as well. So there was a Open Roads Designer training out there. That is where that was housed. So now that you double click on a data source, for the first time you're going to get a working directory dialog. So when you open up documents in ProjectWise, it actually caches them locally to your machine. That's just what this dialog is displaying here. So you can go ahead and hit yes, and it's going to log you into the database. So when you log into the data source itself, such as the Ohio DOT projects, the first thing you're going to see is the directory. And starting out, we have 00 closed, inactive, and canceled projects, 01 active projects, and 02 sold projects. So depending on the status of your project, that is where it's going to lie for your project. For example, in Ellis, there's this property named project status that can be active or sold. So depending on the Ellis property, if it's active or sold, the project's going to lie there automatically. There's a script behind the scenes, so when you update Ellis to sold, it's going to move your project from active to sold automatically, and you don't have to worry about it. Same thing for the closed status in Ellis. Once that changes to closed, the project goes to the 00 closed, inactive, and cancel projects for archive. So next we have the 03 standards. This is where our CAD standards are going to lie, and some help documents along with our templates in ProjectWise. And then we have an 04 admin configuration folder, which is just an access control model for our ProjectWise configuration documents. You probably will not see that, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But you will see the 05 additional projects, which is an area where the projects without a PID are going to be worked on. So if you have a PID, you're going to be working in the active projects as long as it's active. And the 05 additional is for non-PIDs only. And like I mentioned, they're Ellis and project properties. Every PID is going to have project properties that's going to be updated based on the Ellis properties. And we'll show a little bit of that as well. So if you keep Ellis up to date, ProjectWise will be up to date automatically. So now that we've clicked on 01 active projects, this is the folder structure we're going to see. You're going to see your districts, and under districts you're going to see county. There is a district-wide there at the top, as you can see under bar D05. So if it is across multiple counties, that's where your project's going to lie. And finally, under county, you have the PID. And with the PID, you have your folder structure that we came up in ProjectWise. The only difference is 400 engineering was design, and survey has been taken out of engineering as well, or the 400 design. So how we manage our groups is very similar to the folder structure you saw. Kyle and I and Jack Kersetter, who's not here at the moment, are ProjectWise Central Office admins, and then each district is going to have a ProjectWise admin. And their job is to add you into the correct group. So when you log into ProjectWise for the first time, we need to add you to a group to give you the permissions needed to do your daily tasks. So for example, you saw a planning folder, so if you need to be part of the Ohio DOT planning group, and that will give you access to the right access to the planning folder. So what do documents look like? We talked about folder structures. Here you can see a few examples of documents and their icons. At the bottom here, we can also see the project properties. This is a fake project, of course, since it's not a PID, but these are some of the project properties that we're pulling from Ellis. And again, if Ellis is up to date, this will stay up to date automatically on daily. So a little more into depth of what those icons mean. The pencil next to the document means you have read access to that document, so you can make any changes that you'd like. If you have an open book, it shows you only have read access to that document. So when you check out a document or copy out a document, or more like double-click a document, for example, you're going to get a red check mark next to that document. That is just displaying that that document is checked out to you specifically. Other people are going to see the lock icon that you see here. So again, if I check out a document, it's going to turn to that red check mark icon, while you see the locked icon. So you can't really make any changes to that document. Another one is exported, which is that floppy disk that we see next. So you can export documents, which Kyle will go into a little later in the presentation. When you export it, that's the icon you're going to see. And last but not least, we have a final status icon. And that tag basically means that there are no changes allowed to that document. You do need an administrator to reverse the final status for you to work on it again. So if there's documents you don't want anyone to change, that's how you would do that. So that's what the icons mean. So how do we open the documents in ProjectWise? There's a few different ways. You can do double click on a document, which just opens the document with the default, which is going to be Open Roads Designer. If you need to open something other than Open Roads Designer for a DGN, such as MicroStation Connect, you would right-click Open With and then select the application that you'd like to open it with. And last but not least, we have a right-click Check Out. So what this does is it checks out the document, again, your working directory that we proved earlier, and doesn't open it with any integrated software. And one thing we did notice in the ORD trainings is that a lot of people do like to have more than one session. Just a quick note for you, if you hold Shift and double-click a document, that will allow you to have 2 or more active editing sessions at the same time. So I've opened up my document, I've made my changes, and I'm ready to go home for the day. This is how I close out of it. So when I close that red X in the top right, I'm going to get a dialog like this. And there's several options to pay attention to here. So the first option is check-in. What check-in does is it checks in the document back into ProjectWise. That red check mark goes away, the lock goes away for other people. It saves all the changes that you did in the ProjectWise environment. Now the update server copy is a little different. So if I hit update server copy, it checks all the changes back into ProjectWise, but it does not check the document back into ProjectWise. So you'll continue to see that red check mark, and others will continue to see that lock icon. And the third option we have here is free. This could be your worst enemy or your best friend. If you hit free, it purges everything you've done. So if you've messed up on a document, free is your best friend there. You can just hit free, checks it back into ProjectWise, and purges all those changes. But then again, if you've made changes that you do want to keep, you want to make sure you do one of the first two options, because again, it purges it, so you'll lose all that information. And close just dismisses the check-in window, but it does keep the document checked out to you. So just want you to keep that in mind. That was one way of managing the documents. There is another way inside ProjectWise to manage your documents. So if you go under Tools and Local Document Organizer, you can manage your documents that you have checked in or checked out. Or as you can see here, we have one checked out. You can check this document in, you can free it, you can update server copy from this window as well. So that's just an easier way to manage all the documents that you have checked out or copied out to yourself. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Kyle to go over integrated and non-integrated applications.
Thanks. So Brandon talked a little bit about opening documents and once we close them. So some common applications that you would use with documents inside ProjectWise are, of course, all the Microsoft Office products. Those all have an integrated ProjectWise feature. And then, of course, all the Bentley products, Opener as Designer. And it has a special attaching reference dialog that looks a little different than a typical dialog inside ProjectWise or inside Opener as Designer. So I'm going to do a couple examples. The first one I'm going to talk about is Outlook. So we have a direct integration inside Outlook with a ProjectWise tab. So if you kind of look up at the top, this is a screen capture of the top of Outlook. And it allows us to have some additional functionality inside the product and integrate inside to ProjectWise. So a couple things we wanted to talk about first is when sending documents to different people, I think there's going to be two different methods that most people will end up using. One is just as an attachment, so like if you were attaching a regular document to an email now, this will be used more for users not using ODOT's ProjectWise implementation or outside of ODOT's network. So we can attach that file as a copy, and it doesn't get managed inside ProjectWise anymore. For internal users or anyone that's using ODOT's ProjectWise implementation, I think we'll be using the linking feature. So this sends a direct link to the document, so as the user clicks on it on the receiving end, it opens ProjectWise directly to that file location. You can open it with the product that you want. So I'm going to do a brief example here of showing a little bit of the integration inside Outlook. So I have an email that came in that I want to save a file back into ProjectWise. So I'm going to use the ProjectWise tab, and I'm going to select the Export Attachments tool. So I'm going to browse to my file location inside ProjectWise. And this is just a training data set, so I'm just putting it into a folder location. And in doing so, it allows me to add comments to that document as well. So each document has an audit trail that follows the life cycle of the document and provides comments and some features that happened to that document. I'm also going to use the export to ProjectWise. So this is just going to export the entire message into ProjectWise, and I get that same functionality to be able to add comments to that document as we go. Now, going on the opposite direction, if I want to send an email to someone, there's kind of two different methods. So under my ProjectWise tab, my tools change a little bit. I can add those attachments directly from ProjectWise, or I can attach that link. So if I browse to that location, it provides me with a link. And if I could just click on that link, if I was receiving the email, it takes me directly into ProjectWise where that document was. This is just that message file that I had saved in the previous example, and it shows that we still have that entire functionality of having all the attachments and everything associated with that file. If you don't want to use the integrated tabs, we can also just do drag and drop. Similar functions that you would have with Windows Explorer. We can just drag that message directly into ProjectWise, into our correspondence email folder, and we can open that message file just like we would have in Windows Explorer with that drag and drop function. I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about Microsoft Word and using the ProjectWise integrated features inside of it. So I have a Word document that was housed inside ProjectWise, and I'm just going to insert a picture inside this Word document from ProjectWise. So it's just kind of using an example of attaching a document inside another. The same functionality goes inside PowerPoint or Excel or any of those. And then it allows me to save it. So when I hit the Save button, it's just saving directly into my working directory and not into ProjectWise. But I can also do a File Save As and browse into ProjectWise and save this document. So if I'm just going to save another copy of it, just to show that functionality inside ProjectWise. So it's going to ask me to check in my original document and allows me to make edits to that new document that I did File Save As for. And in doing so, I get that check-in box, and those comments also get applied if I wanted to enter those in as well. So I talked a little bit about integrated applications, so the Microsoft, Bentley products. Now, there might be some applications that you need to use that are not integrated directly with ProjectWise. One example is CDSS, one of the hydraulics applications. It doesn't have a direct integration into ProjectWise. So you can use a managed export out of ProjectWise. So if you right-click on your file and hit Export, you get the option to do either a managed export or just an unmanaged local copy. So there's some advantages to using a managed export. It locks that file inside ProjectWise and it doesn't allow anybody to edit it outside. And it also remembers where that file was exported to. So once you import it back in, it's going to look to that file location for any changes to that document. So here's an example. I'm just using some DGN files just to show some additional functionality. But you could use any type of document inside of ProjectWise. So I'm going to export these to just a folder on my desktop as an example. And what it's doing is it's copying these outside of ProjectWise. You'll notice the icon changed to that floppy disk to show that it's exported. And it also exports all of the references associated with that DGN. So if I was trying to send those to someone externally, I could do that as well. If I want to bring those documents back into ProjectWise, I can just hit the import button. I could type in a comment, which is going to get plotted inside the audit trail. And I'm going to go in and look at that audit trail right now. So if I look in the properties, I can go to the audit trail and show that I exported that document to my node name at this path. I imported it back in. I didn't make any changes to it, but it also shows that comment that I typed in that I was finished. So you can see that additional functionality inside those document properties. So the Microsoft products use a COM add-in for ProjectWise. So if you have ProjectWise installed and you don't see that ProjectWise tab, you don't have that integration, the COM add-in is probably turned off, and we can walk you through being able to turn that on and troubleshoot that a little bit if you need to have that functionality in there and you already have ProjectWise installed. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandon again, and he's going to talk a little bit about searches inside ProjectWise.
All right, so in ProjectWise, there are several different ways to search. At our top image here, this is a quick search. So I just said star.dgn, and what this is actually going to do is return all the DGNs inside the data source. So sometimes you need to be a little bit more specific than that. So our left image here, we have an advanced search. I did the same thing, star.dgn, but at the bottom here in our folder to look in, I specified the PID or project that I'm working in. So it's going to search that PID for all DGNs. So that's a little more specific. And if you want to get even more specific than that, you can make queries for your searching. So for example, we talked about project properties. One of those project properties is LPA, which is a value of yes or no. So here I'm doing where Ohio DOT projects LPA is equal to yes. And what that's going to do is go through and give me all the projects where LPA equals yes and return me a more defined search. And you can add and or ors in there, so if you need to be even more specific. So I talked earlier about the Plan Vault and the Ohio DOT Archive data source. Right now we do have the Plan Vault application available. What it is just a centralized hub that provides the plan sets. Currently, right now, we have 1995 to 2018 from all of central office in there, so you can go ahead and use that now if you'd like. You do need ProjectWise installed in order to use it, so if you need that, just give me a holler and I can go ahead and install that for you. There's also a tutorial video for you to watch on how to use it. We are going to each district and trying to get the older stuff in there. We have District 5 in there. Some of this stuff goes back to 1920, 1940. So we're trying to add some more plan sets from each district. It's very simple to use. You just double click on the row. You can do filtering and searching. And when you double click, it's actually going into ProjectWise, pulling that PDF out for you and copying it down to your local machine for you to open and read. So how we create the projects themselves, we have a WORKSET creation app that is now available that the Ohio DOT district admins should have, or that we will give to at least. But it's just how we create the projects. You know, there's ways to create non-PID projects or PID projects. You can create consultants. You can see the 300 and 400 survey, or 300 survey, 400 engineering. And how we do that naming convention for our consultants is the 401 engineering and then the consultant name. So this is just how we create our projects into ProjectWise now. Next, we have the file restore option. There's several ways to restore a file. As of right now, the server version we're on now, only an administrator can restore something that's been deleted. Luckily for the users, we are going to upgrade to a newer version soon. We're just waiting on Bentley to give the okay. And what that allows is for the user to actually go into the deleted items and restore their file. So if you delete a file, there's this little trash can bin in ProjectWise. You'd go to there, you'd filter down to your name or document name that you deleted, and you can restore it, and it puts it right back where it was with the audit trail and all the document attributes. So all that will be handy for you. However, there is a certain threshold. So if you've waited, I think it's 2 months, and you've deleted it 3 months ago, there's a different system for that. We actually have to put a service ticket in for that. You can see the details at the bottom, some of the information that you need. We do have a document on this, so when this comes available, we can go ahead and send that out to everyone if you need to put in a ticket to restore something that was older than 2 months. And that's it. All right, well, thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of the day.